everyone. My name is Jen Kober. Welcome to my podcast, Bitchin' Over Biscuits, where we take a different genre of podcast every week, deep dive into that topic with our surprise celebrity guests. We do it all while eating delicious biscuits. It's a super fun way to spend a half hour of your day. So join us now as Bitchin' Over Biscuits welcomes this week's surprise celebrity guest. He is one of my favorite comedians, a dark, brooding son of a bitch. He directed my special No Flies on Me, one of my favorite humans. Put your hands together for Michael Malone.
Oh, hey, how are you? What a great intro. Thank you, Jen.
Michael, where are you coming to us from today?
I am in the swamplands of Florida right now.
Ooh.
Right on. Right on. I just happened to be in Los Angeles, but it's just an insane little time warp we're in. We are also joined by our producer, grounding force, referee, and all-time fact checker, Mr. Mike Brignac. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Michael. So thrilled to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How are things there in Louisiana, Mike?
Hot and fucking steamy. Hot and humid. It's the same. It's always the same answer. It's hot and it's humid. And and every year I ask myself, for the last 50 years, why am I still here?
We're going to fix that, Mike. We are going to fix that. We're going to get you out west. It's going to happen. Yeah. It's going to happen today, folks. We are bitching over biscuits. And as you know, the star of our show is always the biscuits. This morning, I had a whole plate of biscuits, and my wife made buttermilk biscuits, the buttermilk biscuits, and I had leftover roast. It was like chopped beef that she did. She calls it a Mississippi pot roast. She puts like those banana peppers in with the pot roast and all the carrots. Yeah. But as you can see, we were a little bit late getting started, and I started eating before y'all got on, and not very much of it is left. But it is delicious. Mike, what kind of biscuit you working with this morning?
Wait, go ahead, Michael. You go.
I don't have a biscuit, but I do have a tradition when I travel that I get a blueberry muffin at the airport, which is similar to a biscuit. And I've had blueberry muffins all over this country. And I got to tell you,
prepackaged?
No, you got to get them fresh at the little, either like, I'm not talking like Starbucks or anything like that. You find the little coffee shops or whatever in the airport. You pick up one of those. There's a great one at JFK next time you're there. It's a little standalone, and this biscuit was like the size of a softball. It was huge. Loved it. Can't recommend enough. Next time you're at JFK, go get a blueberry muffin.
Yeah. You know, I too, though biscuits are always first for me, but I do like a good muffin. Someone tried to convince me that the muffin / biscuit clone was a scone.
Oh, no.
Scones are way too dry. It's almost like a cookie. It's a cookie, which is so funny because that's what they call biscuits in England.
Yeah.
That's what they're cookies to us. And they think scones are biscuits. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. God bless America and our blueberry muffins. Thank you, Michael. Other Mike, what are you eating in the way of a biscuit?
Okay, I know my go-to lately is Mary B's, the frozen biscuits, but I'm trying something a little different. It's not technically a biscuit, but it works because it's bread, and I love bread. It is Hawaiian, one of those Hawaiian rolls, but pretzel Hawaiian roll.
Oh.
Drenched in butter, grass-fed butter, and then as a little side snack, these little thin-dipped chocolate almonds.
Oh, you're going candy plus Hawaiian pretzel roll.
I told you, I am so far away from the carnivore diet. It's just it's a distant memory.
You don't know this, Michael, but Mike ate only meat for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like it was like meat with a side of meat. It was like steak with bacon and and chicken. Like it was all meat. It was all
No
No,
fun.
you gotta have some bread in your life. You gotta have some
Hey,
sides. You
yes.
gotta have something. Also, you know what's great on those little Hawaiian rolls? I'm just gonna take up the whole time talking what's great
Go.
about
Yeah.
little foods. I make little deli sandwiches with the Hawaiian rolls with some turkey and lettuce and mayo and all that stuff.
Ooh.
And then I make some soup. And then you dip the little Hawaiian roll mini sandwiches in the
Oh.
soup, and you have a little soup and sandwich. You down three or four of them. It's a whole thing. It's great. You're
Oh,
welcome.
That sounds
nothing
good.
makes me happier than a good dip.
Oh,
A little chunky dunk, a little
mhm.
boom with the roll into the soup. There's
It's
a restaurant here in Los Angeles that serves what they call grilled cheese dippers. It's basically a grilled cheese sandwich that they cut into four long pieces, and then a little tiny cup of tomato basil soup, and you dunk the grilled cheese sandwich in the soup,
Mm.
and they charge you $15 for it. It is one grilled cheese sandwich and not even a cup of like a ramekin of soup, and it's freaking delicious. I can't get enough.
yeah,
I order like four of those, and it's like an appetizer, and I just make it my meal. I'm like, okay, I really could do this at home. What's my problem?
right. Yeah. Plus, it's like milk and cookies for adults. That's what soup and sandwich is. It's just as you
Yes,
get older, you're like, I need a good soup and sandwich. That's what I'm after now. It's
I
terrible.
agree. I agree. Well, this week on Bitchin' Over Biscuits, we will be jumping in to the exciting genre of books. Books, my friends. I have recently really had a nice little renaissance of books in my life. I've been talking in my act. A lot of my new material sort of centers around books that affected me when I was a kid. And so I went ahead and ordered them on Amazon, as one can do. The first book uh, of substance for me was the Berenstein Bears Bee book. Big brown bear, beautiful baboon,
Yeah.
blowing bubbles, biking backwards. Fucking great. I love this book, and I could recite it by memory. I couldn't go to bed as a child without my grandma reading me this book. Do you have a book like that, Malone?
I do. It's also Berenstein Bears. Also, are you aware of
What?
the conspiracy with the Berenstein
Yeah.
Bears and the time
The whole
kind of
Mandela effect.
yeah, the Mandela effect?
Hmm.
Oh no, but tell me. Oh
Or-
fuck! Have we stumbled onto something that's all this? Now we can be in the psycho thriller genre as well.
yeah.
What is it? What is?
I'm,
I don't even know
I'm
what a Mandela effect is.
I'm derailing this podcast already. Listen, okay, so the Bernstein Bears effect is that it was spelled differently. Some people know it as the Bernstein Bears, and some people know it as the Berenstain Bears. And the Mandela effect is there has been a time shift. Also falls in the Mandela effect is like the movie with Sinbad, that's a popular one called Shazam, where he was a genie. That never happened, but some people do remember it happening. So the Berenstein Bears, I can't believe you have that. Like I have the whole collection of them in a storage unit in Ohio with the rest of my dead family's things. So I love the Berenstein
Darn,
Bears.
I love it. No, Berenstein Bears are. I always, when I was a kid, thought they were Jewish because I was a little Jewish
Oh,
kid in the South, and
Berenstein.
so I thought, oh, these are Jewish bears, and it made so much sense to me that my mother was reading me all these books about these Jewish little Jewish bears, and then I came to find out they're not Jewish; they're just
Yeah.
bears.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would make more
Southern
sense that
Baptist.
Goldilocks was Jewish, you know. She was complaining
I
to Ed, you
agree.
know, she's like,
What
this
a little
soup's too
mooching
hot.
horse she was.
This soup's too cold. This soup,
Yeah,
you
she's a
know.
very complaining little one, isn't she? Yeah, very entitled. Very entitled. So my next book that I love talking about, I love reading. They are have always been a favorite of mine. Are Encyclopedia Brown.
Mm.
I got the whole series. There are 40 of these fucking books, and I have read them all. I start them over. This is the very first one, Encyclopedia Brown Boy Detective. This is where it all starts. And what I love about this book is every chapter is a different mystery. It's very
Huh.
satisfying. As a reader, I can't, if you're not keeping me really engaged, it'll just make me fall asleep and I'll only read one chapter at a time. I could read a whole book of this at a time, and I do, because it's so short.
I've never read
Interesting.
those. Never read those
What?
books. I've
Yeah,
heard
I've
of them, but
never
never got
I did
into it.
I've never seen those, but I had Clarissa explaining everything to me when I was a kid. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
okay.
So
Encyclopedia Brown is a boy detective whose father is the chief of police in Idaville, and
Ah,
his dad comes home and talks about the crimes in town, and Encyclopedia solves them over dinner. He's like Doogie Howser, but a detective.
see,
interesting.
the big series long thing that I had like 40 books of was the R.L. Stein Goosebumps. That was my binge.
Oh,
Yeah,
what
that
was
was
the
my
premise
binge
of those?
worthy.
What was the premise of those?
They were like horror stories for kids, like a
Yeah.
little
Okay.
puppet or dummy would come to life, that kind of thing, or like, there's a
That's
haunted
why I don't
locker in
know
the
about it.
gym. Yeah.
I'm not really into the scary. Now, I will say this, my old guy Donald J. Sobel, who wrote Encyclopedia Brown, also wrote 2 Minute
Oh,
Mysteries.
now
It is
those I
a
love.
page and a half. It is a page, each one is a page and a half, and you got to figure it out. And it
Yeah.
amazes me at this age how many I still go, fuck. And I flip to the back to find out the answer because they really do hold up. There
They
really
do.
is a mystery there, and it makes you think in a different way. I don't know if you guys have been watching that show, 1 in 100. It's a new game
No.
show that Patton Oswalt is the host of.
Okay.
I feel like it's on Amazon, but anyway, it's questions. The one question, it's a question. It's not trivia. It's something you have to figure out, like with your brain. It's like the letters in this word spell out how many other You know what I mean? It's that kind of shit. It's shit that you don't have to know a lot to get them right. You have to think the way these questions think. And so it's very interesting, and it gets down to they ask a question. Here's a question 99 out of 100 people got right. Here's a question 98 people out of, so it's out of 100, and how many people in that audience. They start off with 100 people, and then there's a question that only 1 in 100 people got right. And can you get it right? And if you do, you get all the money that's been banked by the other people.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's
That's pretty great.
very exciting, and the questions are just they're 2 minute mystery kind of questions.
Oh, okay.
They're like they're like those, you got to figure it out. Like, how do we know? Like, the professor's lying, and how do we know? And you know because of something they already told you, but you don't you wrote it off. You didn't think about that, right? Like, it's very mind-boggly that way, and I like a book like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to see a theme here, Jen, with your taste. You like a little
I'm
mystery, but you
about to
also like
take
to
you
be
off.
active.
I'm about to take you off the rails
Okay.
because I just said I don't like scary,
Hmm.
but this is probably the scariest book I've ever read. It's a choose your own adventure book called The Mystery of Chimney Rock. Choose your own
Mhm.
adventure books came out when I was a child.
Yeah.
I feel like at the age I was when these came out, I had read everything, right? Like Judy Blume was at her peak. I'd read all of those. I'd read all the Ramona books, everything by Beverly Cleary. I was well into the Babysitters Club, even though I didn't even really like those kind of books. Sweet Valley High was happening. Like, and so these books came out and it said choose your own adventure. And I was like, what? And
Yeah.
what happens is you read a few pages and then you get to a decision, right? It says, would you like to go to the caretaker's cottage and ask for help? Turn to page 22, or climb up the vine to the balcony and see what happens. Turn to page
Yeah.
21. So you would turn, so it could, and I would inevitably dead end it every fucking time. It was like game over. And then I'd have to go back and read and try to figure out. And so these books ultimately ended up pissing me off because I never got a full story because I always kept getting the game over page. And I thought, how do you even write a book like this? Like,
Yeah.
it was so confusing to me, but I loved I took this book on every sleepover with me to read the same storyline. Once I found out one I liked, I would read that same storyline over and over. Thus began my need to binge watch the same movies over and over again.
I was just gonna ask if you ever went back and like reread the other options and like Yeah, how could you not?
I read books from my childhood constantly. I just reread Charlotte's Web, and I don't think I've ever cried so hard in my life. That
Really?
book is so touching. E.B. White is just a ugh. He also wrote a book called Trumpet of the Swan.
Oh yeah,
Oh, did you see that? Did you ever read that book?
I
Oh
didn't.
my, like talk about a gut
Right.
wrenching
No, thank
story.
you.
Like, oh, kill me now. And this is my thing with because I am a big TV watcher. Anybody that knows me, anybody that spent any time with me knows I adore television. But there was a time before now, before we could watch everything all at once in one sitting with no commercials when preferred to read books. I preferred to be by myself,
Mhm.
usually in a closet, no pun intended, just the truth. I would sit in my closet and just be quiet and read to myself. And I think my bitch about books is that what they're doing, I haven't read a kid's book in a long time. And I have a friend who is an author, and I just here it is. I have her book. Sorry, right here. She went to Lagrange, Mike.
Oh,
Do
Oh,
you know Erin Entrada Kelly?
yes. I
Okay,
didn't
so
realize.
she is a children's book author. This is her
What?
book, Hello Universe, a fantastic fucking story. And we went
Yeah.
to high school with this girl. These kind of books, the kind of books she is writing, and I mean, she won the Newbery Medal for this. I
I
mean,
remember that. Yeah, she moved up
she's an
north now.
incredible author. She's had like
Yeah.
4 books come out since this one.
Yeah.
This is just the only one I happen to own, and it was because
Is
the
that one
story
about her
really
Filipino background? The
yes
yes.
it's
I remember that.
so it's such a good book. They don't write books like this anymore.
She's a
I
good
feel like
author. She's a
all the
great
kid
author.
books now, all the stuff that my niece wants to read is fantasy stuff. It's
Mm.
Percy Jackson and it's all it's all this science fiction and that's fine. I'm glad she's reading, but the kind of books that always spoke to me were those like real stories that you were like, oh, that happened to somebody. You know
Hey,
what I mean?
fantasy's real. It happened somewhere in some other realm, some other
Well,
universe. That's my
maybe.
favorite, fantasy and sci-fi.
Really?
There's 10 books that I've been reading every 5 to 10 years since I was a child by David Eddings. And it's fantasy stuff, knights and rogues in this fantasy world. And it's called The First Five is a set that they formed the first series called the Belgariad, which takes the young unknown hero, a farm boy who becomes, it's the hero's journey, but and then the second five is he's grown up and he actually is the hero. And I read it every 5 to 10 years, so much so that Kim got me a new set for Christmas last year. And I cry in it. It makes me cry every
Yeah.
time. I've been crying every 5 to 10 years. I cry when Belgariad finds out he's, the chosen one.
that's actually pretty common for men. We only cry every 5 to 10 years. That's actually, it's all we're
Have you
allowed.
ever had a book make you cry, Malone?
Oh yeah, I have books break my heart all the time. But I'm more grounded. I like really honest stories. I like biographies. I like knowing how people got where they are, things like that.
Yeah.
But I also I love David Sedaris. David Sedaris is probably
Yeah.
my
Oh,
favorite author. His last book was just heartbreaking. It's all about losing his father, due to old age and taking care of him, even though he had this tumultuous relationship with him. And so it was like taking care
He's
of this
such a great
man that
writer.
you yeah, it's taking care of this man that you kind of hated your whole life, but now you're responsible for him. And he used to be so strong and powerful, and now he's weak, and you're the strong one. And that kind of reversal that you go through in life, and a lot of the stories are about that. And it's just really grounded and real. And I love those kind of emotional, just they just move you. I think that's what I go for is things that actually move me. I just actually read my first fiction book since I've been an adult. I'm always reading like real stories, but I read the book from the creator of BoJack Horseman. He wrote a book called Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory. It's so good. It's all fictional stories. It's all in second person narrative, so it puts you in the stories. It's so real. The emotions are, I mean, it's just so good. I've been telling everybody about it. Check
Oh,
it out.
right on. What's it
Yeah.
called?
Someone Who Will Love You in All Your Damaged Glory. It's a
Got it.
long title, but it's a
title.
bright pink book. And it's about 15 or 16 stories. It's a pretty easy read, about 200 pages, and it's so good. I can't recommend it enough. It's really, really good.
I love that. I love that. The last fictional book that I read as an adult was Fried Green Tomatoes, which I loved as a movie, and it's way better as a book. They're lesbians in the book, y'all. I didn't know that. They weren't doing that really in the movie, were they? Hollywood.
Not
I bet
back
if they
then,
remade
no.
that movie now, they would get it on. You
Oh
would
yeah.
see some real chicken fried home happening lesbian shit in that movie. That's what you'd see. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that it was so watered down in the movie. Once I read the book, I was like, well, shit.
Olympia
It's a-
I
Dukakis was
didn't
in
know.
that. She was the one of the lesbians, right? That character.
No, Olympia Dukakis isn't in that.
Oh, she isn't?
It's Kathy Bates, Mary Louise Parker, and the little one from Some Kind of Wonderful, the little blonde, the little dykey one who's always Master Antonio.
Mary
I'm
Stuart,
not
Master
gonna.
Antonio.
There you go. Her.
So Olympia Dukakis isn't in Fried Green Tomatoes?
Is
Okay.
she?
I thought I could be totally wrong. I'm gonna look it up.
You look it up. You're our fact checker. Why
Yeah,
the fuck are you
I should
asking
know
me
this
anything?
shit.
You only got
What,
like 3 job titles, and fact checker's one of them, you hump.
so what about Jen? What about movies that are based on books? Do you have a gripe with that, or did they get it wrong too many times, or what?
I oftentimes confuse the two things in my head. I will have read a book and I'll be like, "Oh my God, that was such a good movie." No, wait, it was a book. And then I'll have seen a movie and be like, "Yeah, I read that when I didn't read it. I saw the movie." So it's one of those things that seems interchangeable to be, but the more and more I have read books that are also movies. I mean, even the Harry Potter series, I think the movies followed the books pretty closely, but there was some shit that was different. And my brain likes recognizing the differences,
Okay.
right? I did a lot of highlights for children magazines where you find the things that are different in the
Yeah.
picture, right? You're
Yeah,
looking
this
at
is
two
this is the
pictures.
theme with you. You have to have interaction. You like activity. Even when you're reading,
Yes.
you like that interaction, you like that activity. You need it to be a little busy for you.
What would you find out, Brignac?
I'm wrong. She wasn't in it.
That doesn't happen often, folks. You are
No.
witnessing that.
Oh shit. But it's a Mandela effect because I swear to you, in my timeline, Olympia Dukakis was on the poster with Jessica Tandy. That's the way I
Look,
remember it. And I was wrong.
oh, it's Jessica Tandy. I was like, I can't even think of who the other white woman in it is. But it's not Olympia Dukakis, but it's Jessica Tandy.
Yeah.
It is.
So
It is. I
mark
think
it down. I was wrong.
there are often times that I didn't know that the movie was a book first.
No,
But
yeah.
what I do not like is when they go from a movie to a book. I'm like, what are you like?
Right.
What? You know what I mean? Like,
Novelization.
why would you then go make it a movie? I mean, then go make it a book once it was a movie. Like what? That doesn't make sense to me.
They did that with Passion of the Christ, didn't they? That was a movie first, and then
No, it's a book, then a movie. Then
oh, that was a book first.
There's a book,
there's
movie, a
an
book.
Old Testament, the movie, and then the New Testament.
I get it confused. It's blurry, you know.
It's in like 96 languages now.
I saw, who was I with? It might have been Brad Garrett, who did a joke about Passion of the Christ where he said it opened on Ash Wednesday and had a very good Friday.
Yeah, that sounds like a Brad joke. For
Yeah,
sure.
it does. But I apologize if I'm not crediting it to the right person. It does sound like a Brad Garrett line. So, but I think that the what happens is, and clearly that's what happened with Fried Green Tomatoes, is they didn't think America could handle
Right.
seeing a lesbian relationship that was that developed and wanted to still tell this story. But I would dare say that if I were Fanny Flagg, I'd have been pissed off because that's the heart of the whole book. Now look, it's a beautiful movie. It happens to work on both levels, but once you read that book and see like how that whole thing really unfolded, and I mean you can see it on screen once you know, right? It's not
Once
like
you know.
it's not like you're right. Like you see those glances that the blonde is giving Mary Louise Parker, and you're like, mm-hmm. Girl, I've been there. Uh-huh. Yeah, you got that crush. I see what's happening, right? Like you see it, but it's I don't I feel like now if they remade that book into a movie, it would be right.
Full on. Yeah. Full on lesbian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Color
Which should have been.
Purple.
Oh,
Color
right.
Purple is another color purple. The Color Purple was a book, was an incredible movie. And then that musical, it is
Yeah.
unfucking real. How good it is, how much more of the story it tells, how watching people just break into song and dance for no fucking reason. But there was a reason. Like you can see the emotion like welling up in them, and then they have to sing. And I'm like, what a great fucking that piece of art has had a lot of iterations, and they have all been
Right.
spectacular.
Which is
Because I
rare.
usually
That's
don't like
very
when they make
rare.
things into musicals, even
Right.
campy shit like Legally Blonde. Like, really? A
Mean
musical?
Girls.
Mean Girls. Really? A
What
musical?
about
But those
what about
things,
like
like,
Wicked?
what about
Ooh,
I think
Wicked.
exactly?
Wicked's one of those that works, right?
That one
Wicked
works.
completely works.
Yeah.
Completely works. But Wicked wasn't, there was no movie interlude. It went from book to
True.
musical and it made that transition beautifully. And I think there are pieces of art that can do that. But to me, that is and it makes something more interesting to me when there's a book and a movie version because I like to see what the difference is.
Well, let me ask you this. What happens when you come across somebody who has not read the book or they've seen the movie and they go on and on about how good the movie is,
Mhm.
but the movie
But
is
that's me a lot.
but you know the movie is worse than the book. Do you get
If
mad?
I have an opinion on it, and the only book slash movie combo that I can think of in my head that I did not enjoy was A Prayer for Owen Meany becoming Simon Birch.
Oh, okay.
That
Oh, yeah.
that book to movie transition did not work for me. That book by John Irving, A Prayer for Owen Meany, is one of the most profound, beautiful, like, that's the guy that wrote The World According to Garp.
Oh,
This
right.
guy
Oh,
is a genius level writer. And that movie did nothing for me. And the parts of the book that stood out so deeply to me in the movie kind of got washed away like it was a memory. And then they came back, they didn't give it the weight that it had in the book. That is one of the few books I can think of where I was like, yeah, this was a better book than it was a movie. The movie did not translate for me.
I
What
have
about
never been
when
happy with a movie. A movie, a book to a movie. I've never been happy with the movie. If I've read the book
Really?
first, I've
Is it
always,
is it because you've read the book first?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Now, if I were to
That's
read the book after, then I'm thrilled. Like, ooh, there's so much more to the story. But if
yeah.
I'd read the book first, I don't even, I know the movie's gonna be awful.
what about this, Jen? What about when people say, "Oh yeah, I'm reading that book," and then later you find out that it's an audio book and they're just listening to it? Are
That doesn't
Oh,
you
count.
see, I think that counts. I think
No.
that counts.
okay?
I really want my college roommate, uh, her job is she reads books on audiobooks. She has an amazing voice. She does all the little
Ooh.
characters and voices. And I mean, she's literally been like nominated for awards. She's so good at it. I was listening to a book. I do that a lot because I travel so much. a book called Bird by Bird, which is a book about writing. And she's reading it. My college roommate, I'm like, I know that fucking voice. And sure enough, I looked and it's Susan Bennett, my college roommate, who is reading this book that I just bought to me. And I had no idea that she was reading it. This was just a book I wanted to read. So I love that. I love listening to books. To me, that counts. To me, that counts because you're still listening to the story. Some people are auditory, like, right? I like to listen to books. Oftentimes when I'm reading, even by myself, I read out loud. Like not loud, but I read like you can hear if you were listening, you'd be like, "Is that book bitch mouthing the words? Is she fucking talking?" You know what I mean? But I am, because I like to hear it. Because to me, there's a rhythm to speaking. There's a rhythm to writing. I am writing something right now, and the cadence of the pitter patter of the dialogue is what gets me going, and I can't look at that on a page. I have to hear it. So I'm constantly reading the lines. I'm doing all the voices and being all the people. Thank God I competed in speech in high school. Now it all comes to fruition. Now these skills are mine. But that's what it is. It's that I have to hear it. There's a music to it. You know that. In comedy, there's a rhythm to what you're saying. And sometimes when they ask you, like, hey, we need you to be clean. Can you change this word to this word? And you're like, no, I fucking can't. I have said it. There's a musicality to it. Are you asking fucking Billy Joel to sing different fucking words? No.
Right.
It's what's the matter with the car I'm driving? You can't fucking change the words. You know? It's annoying that I think a lot of people don't get that.
I'm still thinking about somebody walking by your bedroom when you're young, you're in your closet, and they just hear you reading to yourself. And then it was Colonel Mustard with the candlestick. Your little murder mysteries.
Well, but they weren't necessarily. That's what's funny is now I love murder mysteries. Oh my God, I totally blame books, these Encyclopedia Brown for that. I love a good episode of Dateline real bad. But these mysteries were like, it was kid stuff. It was like a kid brought a letter to school saying he had a real signed bat by this famous guy, and and Encyclopedia's like, the bat's a fake and I can prove it. How did he prove it? You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of stuff. It's not, nobody's hurt, really. Things get stolen a lot. People fake things a lot. Things have been broken into, or crimes have been played with, but nobody's dying. It's for kids. It's not necessarily death. It's, somebody stole my pet. Somebody took or copied my idea for a story in the school newspaper, and how do we prove it was it's stuff like that. It's a lot of cheating, a lot of lying, a lot of scheming, but sadly not a lot of murder. And
what does that do for your trust issues as an adult now, Jen?
You know what's so funny? I was at my therapist last week, and we were talking about how I'm not sleeping well. There's nothing I feel like I'm doing all the things that the YouTube has told me to do for the sleep. I'm listening to something calming. I don't have the TV on. I'm doing it at the same time at night, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. If I can fall asleep, I pop back up in a couple of hours thinking of shit like, fuck, I need to write this down. I need to get this done, stuff like that. Right. And so when we first started talking about it, my therapist said, what is your perfect way to go to sleep? I'm like, well, what I like to do, Doc, I like to get a couple of cosmic brownies from Little Debbie. Ooh. Maybe one of those little tiny cups of Bluebell ice cream with the wooden spoon. I like to eat those things in bed while watching Dateline, and just when you're about to find out who did it, that's when I like to fall asleep. And she said, you fall asleep to Dateline? I said, yes, ma'am. If somebody's being murdered, I want to fall asleep to it. She goes, okay, we need to unpack that. Why do you find trauma so comforting? And I'm like, Probably because it's happening to other fucking people. And also, there's an end. I'm going to find out why the trauma happened and who did the trauma, right? Like that, it's so satisfying to me that there's a unsolved mysteries. Go fuck yourself. I will never watch that show. Why would anyone watch that show? I don't even get it. You're just left hanging. What, you're going to just tell me about some shit that happened and then give me zero? What? Why did anyone watch that show?
Yeah, listen, I'm no doctor, but eating a bunch of sugar and then watching murder as you're going to sleep, maybe.
But you know what? Sometimes if I can read a book, it'll bring me right back. It'll calm me down. So maybe if I was reading about murder instead of watching it and hearing it, that might be better. I might need to go get like a copy of In Cold Blood or something.
Ooh.
Little Truman Capote to put me to sleep.
Maybe right? a little Stephen King and a blueberry muffin. Maybe just change it up,
Exactly right. And see how we brought it right back to blueberry muffins in this beautiful organic circle that is Bitchin' Over Biscuits. We want to thank you so much, Michael Malone, for joining us today and talking to us about books, one of my favorite subjects, as you can tell.
Thanks for
we
having
didn't even scratch the surface. I feel like we can do books again.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe next time we can like divvy it up between fiction and nonfiction and traumatic and non-traumatic. We got some great book recommendations. Mike will put those titles in the description so that folks can find those easily. We want you to join us on Instagram. You can find us at the BOB Podcast, Bitchin' Over Biscuits, that is, at the BOB Podcast, or look for us online, thebobpod.com. We also would welcome you to be a sponsor of our show. Pillsbury, I'm talking to you. Why don't you come and bring us some biscuits for us to bitch over? We would love to have you. You can find all of the information for those things at our website, thebobpod.com. I have a special out right now. It's called No Flies on Me. It is available on my website to watch for free in its entirety, jenkober.com. It was directed by today's special surprise celebrity guest, Mr. Michael Malone, and thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was incredible.
Rave reviews. People love it. Yeah. People love the way it looked. People love the way it was shot. You did such a beautiful artistic job on this, and I adore you for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So go check that out. No Flies on Me. This is Mike Brignac, Michael Malone. I am Jen Kober. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Bitchin' Over Biscuits, and we are out.